the American Academy of Pediatrics stated that children who live with only one parent have higher chances of developing depression and suicidal thoughts than those who live with both biological parents. This is really important. Divorce have, serious impacts on children, their future, their education, their ability to earn income. So it's very important for parents to really take a serious look about, how this decision will impact their children.
So I thought about it, and every single couple from our generation that I know doesn't have a completely successful marriage.
Oh, wow. Everyone.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody who I know, like who I went to college with or high school or friends, family, like my cousins and whatnot. I can't think of anyone that's my age that's in a completely successful marriage. I mean, not everybody is divorced, but everybody has gone through intense marital problems to the point that probably they got close to a divorce, or they just never got married at all. So like obviously like some people just have long-term girlfriends or off and on relationships, or a lot of them just no relationship whatsoever.
This is very interesting because I'm seeing a lot of people in my generation also coming to ending their marriage. A lot of ladies are talking to me about, after being married for 10, 16, 15 years, they're thinking about divorce. So I'm thinking this is very unusual this time. I've never seen that many ladies talking to me about ending their marriage, especially after long-term, marriage with children, when there's not a lot of strong, typical reasons for divorce, such as drugs or crimes or domestic violence or
infidelity.
It's not that. So, and that's, to me, it's very unusual.
Yeah, I know. It's almost just like people, they have like a time like expiration dates, like food. Like this marriage is going to expire after 10 years, and there's nothing you can do about it. It just like lost its freshness. Because now marriages are ending, and you said like you can't even point to something that says why. It's just like, yeah, we just don't love each other anymore. We're just like tired of fighting with each other. It's like, well, why are you fighting with each other? I mean, I'd say financial stress is probably a big situation for a lot of people, but it's not for everybody, because even like the rich and famous and those people are getting divorced too. Like they can't stay married either, and finances aren't the problem.
I also noticed that a lot of people are not getting married, and I thought that was only the women's side. And I was talking with one of the family members who also observed similar with the men's side, and he said, a lot of men, and he's talking about 40 and up, that they're not married, which is very unusual in our culture. Usually the minute you graduate from college, and within a year or two maximum, you're 25, you're 26, you're already married. So it's no longer 30, we're talking about 40 years and old and still single.
Yeah, I mean, in the Middle East, it's a whole different proposition too, because like they're starting out from a different point than where we're starting off from. But it's funny because we're both arriving at the same place, where I'd say their marriages are failing now in the sense that people don't want to get married anymore. So like they're just like, we're not even going to start, okay? Mm-hmm. Or here, people can't stay married. People in the West are still willing to get married, but they can't stay married. Mm-hmm. So they go through multiple marriages or marriages and relationships and things like that. But at the end of the day, like it doesn't work in either situation. But there's a lot of cultural reasons as to why I think people here will still get married, and there they won't get married in the first place. But the result is the same.
I think post-COVID, the marriage institution is really being challenged like never before. People post-COVID are very, very different. The way they respond to typical challenges is very different, and I think it took a big, it has a big impact on the institution of marriage. Um, in the Muslim community specifically, people now, you hear things like, I want to be happy, I want to, this, I'm not feeling happy in this relationship, I want out because I want to be happy. This is a very unusual way of talking in our community. People typically don't talk like that. They don't want to end a stable marriage because they want to be happy. That's not how we talk in our community. We don't, this whole quote unquote happiness. Oh, I'm quitting this job because I'm not happy, or I'm quitting this marriage because I'm not happy, or I'm quitting this, moving out because I'm not happy. It's very unusual. I just never, it's very unusual in our community, from my perspective.
I'd say it's actually the opposite of historically how Muslims have viewed those kinds of institutions. People wanted to get married because they were unhappy, and they saw marriage as the source of happiness. So you watch like a traditional show, like Baba Hara or something like that. It's like the lonely, depressed guy is the guy who's unmarried.
Yeah.
So he's like, I need to get married so I can be happy. Today, it's the opposite. I need to get out of a marriage so I can be happy. And the same thing with a job. Yeah, there'd be like the loser bum like around the village who can't work or doesn't want to work. Like he's really lazy.
Yeah.
And he's like the loser who's just wasting his life, and everyone would see him as like the unhappy kind of guy. Like he needs to have a job so he can be happy. Or today it's like, I need to quit my job to be happy. Jobs are for idiots. Jobs are for suckers. So literally, like the values of society have been turned upside down.
This is a very good example, Bab al-Hara. It's a very famous Syrian soap opera show that, can't remember even how many years it was, but it's very...
A million years, like Days of Our Lives. It never ends.
Yeah, it's a very good example how the Arabic society used to be, and how happiness was found in establishing a family, and how happiness was found in, just getting a job, and, massive poverty and unemployment. And people we're not picky. They were just like, I'm feeling grateful. I'm feeling blessed. I'm really, really lucky to be able to say I have a job, or, I belong to a family. But right now, I'm just not, sure where is this coming from? This whole, I'm not happy principle.
Well, there's a million ways you can approach it. One thing is like having a job and having a spouse in a traditionally like collectivist society, which is what Muslim societies were. Like they weren't individualistic. The idea was that like you were part of a tribe, or you were part of a city or a village or a community, or even like a religious school of thought or something. Like people identified by their group. They didn't identify individually. So within like a group dynamic, what's the most successful thing for the group is ultimately like what the most successful thing for you is. And the most successful thing for groups historically would have been marriage and children to make the group bigger, and work and income to make like the group richer. So like how you advance in society is like how good of a job you had vis-a-vis like how much money you made for your tribe or whatnot, or your social circle. And the same thing, like how big of a family you had. So how many kids, or even, historically the affluent would say maybe like, hey, it'd be funny, like if back then, if I'm not happy with my wife, I'll probably get another one. Like, and try, I'm not going to divorce her, but I'll probably try like get more wives and see if I'm happy with her. Today, people want no wives. They want 0 wives to be happy. But Muslim society is being shifted into individualist society because it's modeling the West. So they want people to think and act like Americans or Europeans, which is like me. It's all about you. Your personal happiness is all there is. There is nothing bigger than you. You're not part of a tribe. You're not part of a village. You're not part of a society, or tariqa, religious order, social order. You're not even part of your mosque or church anymore. Just you. So if you're happy, the whole world is happy. And if you're sad, the whole world is sad, because you are the whole world. I think that's like a big part of the brainwashing that's taken place for all of us. We don't even realize it, that we have been programmed to think that we are all there is to the universe.
I totally agree. I can see that definitely, because I would think about my mother's generation, and my mom's generation. I don't know anyone who's divorced. From
Sure.
my mom and her friends and her family, all people her age, around her age, little older, little younger. I don't know anyone who's divorced. There's one lady, only one lady in the entire neighborhood where I grew up, where her husband left her for a second wife, but then he went back. So she's back with him. But he left her when he was married to a second wife, and then he went back. But she never divorced him, and she's with him now. She's a very old lady. So when I'm thinking, men at that time were not perfect. Women at that time were not perfect. But they had something that I think a lot of people in our generation did not have, that helped them really see things through, which is commitment. There's so much research and statistic that talks about the importance of family. The importance of family protecting children, protecting everybody. Children who grow up in family are more likely to be successful in different aspects in life, not just academically, but career-wise and financially. When they grow up in, when we talk about, traditional family, husband and wife, mom and dad, the single parenthood comes with a lot of statistic that raise a lot of concerns, regarding the kids might, live in poverty. They might not finish high school. Even if they do, what kind of career perspective they have, and how much money they'll be able to earn. The numbers are there, and they're just very frightening. So when you think about the challenges that my mom generation went through, some of them lived through wars, and some of them lived through severe poverty and sickness, and losing a lot of family members to illnesses and accidents, and some of them, even the marriages were really a disaster, to be honest. But they were very committed, and divorce was not an option. And I feel really blessed to grow up in a family with mom and dad. I think that's really a beautiful blessing that I don't take for granted, and it's one of the things that I keep in my mind, because it's a gift, and I want to give that gift to my own children. So I don't want to, have my children not have that gift, that the great blessings to grow up in a family with mom and dad. When you look at the statistics of kids who end up missing, who end up being kidnapped or sexually molested or assaulted or experiencing drugs, or, a lot of them, unfortunately, do not have that mom and dad, stability.
Yeah, I think everything you said is like it's a good summary of the byproduct of what's happened, like, because of the failure of marriage. I guess my thoughts now are about, like, how we got here, and I think it's still. I thought to myself, why did we have that sense of commitment in the past that we don't have it currently? And I think a lot of it is societal. That you stay committed to your marriage because that's what you're supposed to do, and that's what everybody else is doing too. So you can, like, look around you, like, Bill down the street, he's not happy with his wife, but they're making it work. And Tony, the other, next door, like. I know he fights with his wife all the time, but, like, you just gotta get through it. There's just the idea, like, okay, everybody has their problems, but, till death do us part. Like, you gotta deal with it. However you have to deal with it, you deal with it, because you don't want to be, like, as you said, like, literally, if someone was divorced, like, in your mom or dad's, like, neighborhood, they'd be like the pariah. They'd be like the weirdo in the whole town. Like, you got divorced? He's just going to stay divorced?
Yeah, it wasn't acceptable at all. There was a time when a woman got divorced. Her sisters didn't get married. That would have been the end for that family.
Yeah, people would be like, what? I mean, again, it was more acceptable to be like, to go get another wife than to be divorced.
Absolutely.
Like, so it just, that's how the society was created around it. There's so many things now you can look at where the society has been manipulated to the point that it's abusive to marriage. It's abusive to starting marriages and it's abusive to sustaining marriages. So not only like do you not have any societal pressure now to stay married. In fact, it's the opposite. Everything is get a divorce. Like, from divorce attorneys to every couple, every movie, every TV show is like divorce, or starter marriage. Then you go on to the second marriage. It's all pushing you in that direction. And even from the beginning, part of the reason why there's a lot of people out there even still that they want to get married, but they have no means to access marriage. Their parents aren't going to arrange a marriage for them. They're socially awkward. They can't date. They're no longer part of any kind of faith community or social institution that, also sponsors marriage. And that's also the society. I mean, in the same time period that like your mom and dad are growing up, or even my mom and dad are growing up, if there was some single guy, a single girl like in the town, people just got them married. Like, hey, he's single and she's single, so I guess they're marrying each other. And that's like, the society would push them into a relationship. It's like, look, you're not just going to stay single forever, so you're marrying him. Like, you didn't find anybody till now, I guess it's him. Today it's the opposite. People just stay single like from cradle to grave, like their whole life, and society won't care. If anything, they prefer it like that.
Because it increases consumption. And there's a NIH study that lonely people turn to consumption, like buying things for socialization. So if families are all broken up, then they're selling to individuals, not to families. Like before, you could sell one TV to one family. Now, when mom and dad are separated, you can sell one TV to mom and one TV for dad. I mean, broken homes are good for business.
Everything is individual. You are your own universe. Like, so if it doesn't work for you, then like, okay, I guess the whole world is wrong. Where in the past, like, no, you're wrong. The whole world is perfectly fine. Like, everything is being ordered the way it should be. The problem is with you need to just, get through it. Yes. Times are tough. Get through it. Now times are tough. Get out.
Right. It's the marriage institution definitely is under attack. The society is shifting away from it. We are in the Muslim community, however, we have to really do more. Whether we're talking about professionals, marriage and family therapists, and mental health clinicians, we're not doing enough to educate the public about the importance of marriage and way of resolving problems. Unfortunately, the majority of Muslim couple who are going through divorce, they did not access these services for multiple reasons, including the stigma. People rather go to a sheikh, and even if that sheikh is not trained in psychology, and the person could have a mental illness or psychological or cognitive or whatever issues that are impacting their ability to have a successful relationship, or they'd rather talk to their friends or talk to people who are not just qualified to address this problem. Statistically speaking, America is able to reduce the divorce rate since the promoting of marriage therapy. So marriage therapy is really effective. But when our community is reluctant and they don't consider it until it's too little and too late, until both of them, they're already, they're done. It's like there's a dead body there. It's just nothing, no CPR will bring it back to life. So it's almost impossible. So we have also this problem with our community where from the beginning, can we start with pre-marital, counseling? Can we start with, if someone is having issues or symptoms, can we start from the beginning, from the early signs, go to counseling, start seeing somebody, talking to somebody, and not worrying what people think about you, or, oh, I don't want to be the crazy one, or people will look at me this or say about me that. Because there's some prognosis that, if you ignore the elephant in the room is just not going to go away.
Now, Muslim couples today need to think of staying married as jihad, as an actual struggle that they have to fight to hold it together. And you don't do jihad by yourself. You need help. Nobody goes out for the battlefield like, yeah, I got this one. Give me my sword. I got it. You guys can just stay home and relax. It's a team effort. And back in the old days, I'd say staying married was a team effort. Because, we have even going back to like the earliest hadiths, Sahabi complaining about their wives, complaining about their husbands. He doesn't do this, she doesn't do that, so on and so forth. We have these but people would never recommend like they shouldn't stay married. They would just give advice like, hey, did you try this? Maybe work it out. Or, yeah, my husband's annoying too, but we just have to be patient because that's who we're married to. It's not like the problems weren't there, but there was more of like a team mentality. Like, we're all in this together. Nobody has a perfect marriage. There was more support.
Definitely.
More support. Today there's no support, and people are embarrassed to ask for help.
True.
And get support.
Right. I think one of the problems that we're dealing with today is the amount of complaints. People want to complain about their spouses, and they complain about them to family and friends. It's become part of the social norm where people standing by the water cooler and start complaining. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's cool to complain these days.
Yeah, it's almost like if you start talking positively about your own family, you're just like the weirdo, or you're trying to pretend, or you're being fake. It's kind of like some of the dues that some people feel they have to pay to fit in, to belong. When you complain about your spouse all day, that's all what you hear. That's what you're talking to yourself, and you're coming back home with a not healthy attitude, and you're only going to see more complaints and more problems. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us in Quran to reflect on the blessings. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. Speak about the blessing that you have and be grateful. Today is the opposite. People just feel it's part of the social construct of some relationship. Everybody complains.
Yeah, it's almost like a competition of suffering. Like, who can win? Like, no one has suffered as much as me. You should hear my laundry list of complaints.
Yeah, and it's like a joke what they refer to their spouses and how they talk about them.
Yeah. You could call it epidemic of complaining.
Absolutely.
Worldwide.
It plays a big role, and I always remember when I was telling my clients that it's time to do the fasting, this ritual fast for 40 days, no complaints. It's like, oh, what are we going to talk about then? I think one of the beautiful stories about Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh is one day when he was, he was in a situation with his wife, and I guess there were some loud noises or argument, and someone knocked on the door, and he went to answer, but then he saw the guy leaving, and he said, "Stop! I mean, did you just knock on my door and now you're leaving?" And he said, "Yes, I came to complain to you about my wife, but I was able to hear your wife yelling at you. So I said, I guess, you're going through the same thing that I'm going through." And it's Sayyidina Umar, who is very known to be, the strongest, the biggest, the loudest. But at home, his wife actually was louder, and his wife was yelling, and he was very upset with him, and he was very patient, and that was his advice to the man, to basically be patient through these moments instead of escalating it to a situation, because women has to be, a woman is not like a man. You don't, if your woman is upset, the way you respond, you don't, if your body is yelling at you, you might want to yell back, but to do that with your wife, she's not like your buddy. You can't do that.
Yeah, no, don't. Today, that has to come in the form of advice, like, don't treat your wife like one of the guys. Like, she's not one of the guys. But, that's a beautiful story. And it just speaks to the fact that the problems have always been there. But the mentality around the problems has changed. And now people think that divorce is the answer. And that, the grass is greener on the other side. But it's a problem with perspective. Because the grass is never green on there. So you can look at people who get divorced and remarry and things like that when there weren't really any problems like to bring about the divorce. They're just in a vicious cycle. They're always divorcing and remarrying.
Yeah.
It doesn't solve the problem.
Right. So specifically when the guy actually had top Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, he told him, I came to complain to you about the mannerism of my wife and how she yells at me and she can get loud. And then I heard your wife's voice and how she was yelling. And I realized we're in the same boat, basically. So I decided, I said, if this is the Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's the caliph and he's the head of the state.
The king.
Yeah, and his wife is yelling at him. So,
And not just the like the king and the ruler, but like one of the disciples of the prophet, considered like a holy man, like an exemplar, like example for all the Muslim community.
Yeah, so I said, so who am I next to him? Then Umar ibn Khattab radhiyallahu anhu responded and he said, I'm very patient with her because she has rights over me. She has rights over me. She's the one who cooks my food, she bakes my bread, she washes my clothes, she feeds my children. And this is all, she does not have to do all that. This is not required for her to do, but she does it. And when I go to her, I avoid haram. I avoid doing the haram. So I'm patient with her for her doing that. Then the man said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, leader of the believer, my wife is doing the same. She does all these things for me as well. Then Umar ibn Khattab responded to him and he said, okay, my brother, then be patient with her. It's a very short time.
It's a very short time. And it's getting shorter today. Because, life is over in the blink of an eye.
Right.
And the 30, 40 people it's like considered amazing now if people are married for 50 years.
Right.
But what's that in the face of like eternity? It's nothing.
Right.
Blink of an eye. Like just, I just find somebody else, or I just like get out of this, I won't have any problems, and the perfect person, there's no perfect person, and there's no perfect marriage. There's always problems. It's just about like, do you want to deal with your situation right now and these problems, or do you want to go out and find new problems?
And I think, we are human beings. We all have our own limitation. No one is perfect. And I think part of the reality is, as long as we're not dealing with major issues, and what I'm talking about is domestic violence. Domestic violence should not be tolerated whatsoever. A person who engages in domestic violence is not safe to be around. That person must seek help and professional help and treatment before he can access the privilege of a family. Because right now, domestic violence is very, very dangerous. So every day, 4 women in America lose their life to domestic violence. Domestic violence kills women. The overwhelming majority, almost 90% of women who are murdered, they are murdered by family and loved ones. So it's very serious, and I hope if someone or if you are experiencing domestic violence, please seek help. Go to Domestic Violence Online or call the hotline to receive the support you need. We're not talking about this situation. We're not talking about a person who is committing infidelity and could bring health risk to the other person as well, and committing, acts that compromise the safety of the family.
No, that's an important point, which often gets overlooked with cheating. Is like, when people are married, they expect that the other person is free of like diseases and whatnot, especially diseases associated with like sleeping around and things like that. So when people violate that trust and sanctity, then there's a health concern beyond just like a emotional concern.
Right, and trust,
Yeah.
So safety, trust, these are really essential. But then when we talk about financial stressors and how money should be spent and how money should be managed, finance is one of the top reasons for divorce in America. The second, between finances and communication, depends on what research you're reading. Communication is number 1, finance is number 2, or finance is number 1, communication is number 2. Both of these 2 issues are really big factor in divorce, and I think it's also a factor in our Muslim community. And these are all issues could be resolved by seeking professional help and learning how to talk to each other, learning how to resolve conflict, learning how to de-escalate, conversation. Everything doesn't have to be a fight. And there's a way to talk to your spouse in a way that does not destroy this relationship, to preserve that relationship. How to use emotional intelligence to your advantage so you can build a lasting love. Love doesn't end with marriage. It's not true. You could actually enjoy a very much growing love through the years. The more you spend time together, the more you will love one another. It's actually mentioned in the Quran. The mawadda and rahma is the highest level of love, mawadda. So, and it's not just that, you also then have that compassion and affection and mercy towards one another. So when you are in a relationship and you're not seeing that, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? It's not either or. Either things are perfect or I'm divorcing. There is always room for the gray area where we can seek professional help individually or as a couple. We all need that support. Life is very stressful. You're dealing with stress at work, stress just dealing with post-COVID changes, family, politics, economy, everything. So many stressors. It will take, toll in your relationship no matter what you do. Are you going to be in denial? Are you going to be proactive? What are you going to do? So that's the question.
Yeah, when you go to counseling, these kind of skills, you can learn to walk away from the fight without having to walk away from the whole marriage. You don't have to end the relationship to end the fight. You just have to learn skills of I'm not going to argue anymore. I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to go to another space in my house, whatnot. So there's skills that you can learn that makes your relationship easier. So that everybody gets into fights, but there's fair fights and there's unfair fights, just like there is in the street. Two guys punch it out, it's considered respectful. Somebody brings a baseball bat to that fight, it's no longer a dignified fight. Now it's just an act of violence. So you have to kind of keep your fights fair and learn the rules within the relationship so that you can make it through to the other side.
And just to clarify, you're not asking couples to punch it out, right?
No.
Okay.
No, they shouldn't do that. Again, your wife is not one of the guys. You can go punch it out with one of the guys, but you don't do that with your wife. No, just an analogy, because people know there's a fair way to fight in the street, and there's a fair way to fight with words too.
Fascinating study published by the NIH in 2019 that focused on human relationships in patients and end of life. They completed a qualitative study in hospice ward, and it's very interesting, and I'm reading. In fact, the main thought of our patients was the family in their ending life. Persons with good human relationships were less anxious to die because, in our opinion, they were surrounded by family love and support. Therefore, they faced death with more peace of mind. And this is really fascinating because it supports so much research and data that talks about us at the end of our life as human beings. What really matter is the relationships. People at their deathbed, they don't regret that bonus they never got, or that job promotion, or feel sad about being terminated, or they could have made more money or worked more job or had more things, or buy more expensive cars, or live in a better neighborhood. That does not matter. What truly matter is relationship, and people, that's what they value at the end of life. And unfortunately, that's where the majority of regret is coming from, because they realize sometimes it's too late to have a chance to build these memories and to harvest the fruit of hard work, of dedication and commitment to these relationships. Final word? Marriage?
Marriage is hard work, and it's the hardest job that you'll ever work, but it pays the best salary.
Absolutely worth it.